Thank you, and welcome everyone to the great sample debate. I think we can all agree that was a fantastic opening speaker. One note I took, which is I haven't practiced that behavior enough, therefore I feel uncomfortable. A little bit like me today. So I need to practice this behavior a little bit more. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Katie Gross. I'm the SVP for Americas at Cint, and I am delighted to be hosting today's great sample debate. We have a fantastic panel of people who need no introduction. However, we have a lot of new faces that are new to SampleCon. So I will do a quick round of introductions for everybody. Corey, let's get us started.
Yeah, hi, I'm Corey Julseth. I look after sample strategy and field operations with JD Power. I'm really happy to be here. I've been labeled by my panel here as a buyer. So that kind of be interesting. They're going to force me to a first a lot, I think.
Yeah. I'm Sima Vasa. I'm one of the founders of Paradigm Sample, and I work on things like this for Paradigm. How's that?
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. That was really awesome. Yeah, there we go. I think we're in the wrong. On it. My name is Patrick Comer. Basically, I'm just really happy that Sima's doing the chair role of SampleCon. I think we should clap for her all the time because she's fantastic. But I'm the founder and CEO of Lucid.
Hi, I'm Mendy, Orimland. I oversee the question and answer business over at Prodege. I thought you'd like that one.
Ooh, yeah.
Sets the table.
Yeah, right on.
I'm very uncomfortable with this chair. I feel like I'm not tall enough.
That's why I'm
Figure it out.
I've got my heels. I got my heels hooked
I'm like
on
trying
the
to
bar.
figure out where's John. I need help. I'm uncomfortable.
Locked in.
Where's he?
It's good feeling uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah,
Get
for you
comfortable
guys.
feeling uncomfortable. All right, so we're going to continue the theme of audience participation. So I'm going to ask for some hands to be raised as we go out through the debate. So we're going to start by asking, are we in a bear or a bull market? How's everybody feeling? Audience, we're going to go first. Are we in a bear market? Hands up. Ooh, a semi one, half a hand.
Wow.
One.
So are we in a bull market?
All right.
Excellent. There's a lot of non-raised hands, so a lot of people who were thinking maybe not quite so sure. So I'm actually going to start with Corey. What are your thoughts?
Did we define bear and bull on the offset? You know, so I was actually surprised to see no bears. I'm with my client hat on, feeling kind of bearish with a smattering of cautious optimism. And what I'm seeing from the places that I'm procuring sample is that I have declining feasibility, and my sources of supply are less representative, and it's actually becoming more difficult for me to support studies that I've supported, in calmer waters. So, I'm feeling a little bullish in that regard. My optimism is around conferences like this, and to see the innovation in the industry and the fact that people are continuing to drive an agenda or a call to action around declining response rates and the things I've just talked about, user experience and participation. Those are all things that were coming out of our mouths during the drinks last night. And what I think is I think that we need to double down on the call to action. I think that we need to call louder, and I think that the sellers and buyers need to collaborate in a deeper way against the business problem. So that's kind of how I see things these days.
Right. So from the buyer perspective, but from the seller perspective, Mendy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Patrick, how long ago were we in Atlanta on that kickoff around, was it 2013, 2014?
I don't know. How many times have we been in Atlanta?
Okay, so there was one of the industry conferences. I forgot which one.
Oh, not SampleCon, you mean?
Wasn't SampleCon.
It was IIEX 2013.
IEX 2013, and I still remember we did a little discussion or a panel together, and I still remember the question, is programmatic good or bad? And there was a lot of bad. I would say majority bad. Majority bad. So I look and I'm very bullish because you sit here and you just look how far we've come. I think back then it was very negative around, we don't move as an industry, we're the slow industry. 2013, yes, maybe 5-6 years ago, but it's not too long ago, and look how many new players look how many new platforms, and I'm very bullish because when you see all this, it's opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll add, in addition to all that, I think, to me, the measure, I'm bullish, but I think it's people like Corey and other buyers who are willing to sit at the table and hear some of the challenges that we deal with and work together to kind of build the right solution to meet the needs. And I think that's changed a lot in the last 2 years. It's really quite amazing. And we're not hiding anything. Like, we all own this problem, and hence we all work on a solution together.
Right. And you may have caught in my closing comment about the sort of the ask for help
Yes.
and the ask to collaborate. I think that sellers are much more sophisticated. They understand how it works. They understand the bridge to direct marketing, and I don't think buyers are there yet.
Right.
And buyers need help in that regard.
Yeah, so you mentioned there's been a lot of change since 2013. It definitely feels to me that everyone's becoming a little bit more collaborative.
Yes.
In particular, Patrick, obviously, as a disruptor in this industry, what do you think has driven some of that change since 2013 to where we are today? And are you optimistic about 2019?
I'm blazing hot optimistic about 2019.
Excellent.
Surprise.
Yeah, are we
Blazing hot.
surprised?
I think what's changed, I was reflecting on it last night and this morning, is there is that sense that we are all in it together. I got my start in Sample next to Olivier at OTX in 2003, 2004. And there was a very fixed pie mentality. If I win a project, you lose, et cetera. And I feel not only are we collaborative because it's a good thing, we're literally tied to the hip of everyone else's success or failure.
Yeah.
So there's a sense that we have to solve this.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Collaboration is required. It's not something we can choose or not choose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think collaboration needs to be our theme of 2019, for sure. I'm going to change tack slightly and talk about the word sample. It seems a little bit like in our industry over the past couple of years that sample seems to be starting to be removed from kind of the lexicon of everyday market research, being replaced with kind of supply, inventory, and so on. So I'm going to ask, has sample become a dirty word? And I'm going to start with Sima, so you have the word sample in your company name.
So, yeah, this question makes me giggle a bit because sample is truly the basis of research, right? You need a representative sample of the population you're trying to research. So at the very base, I think it's not a dirty word. It's probably been associated with the issues of quality and fraud and everything else, and maybe we're kind of trying to rebrand the word, but we still have to fix those base issues. It doesn't go away if you say data or supply or anything like that. So I actually would encourage us to still use the word sample. It's the basis of research, right? We need to have representative populations to do research.
Yeah. Mendy, what are your thoughts on the word sample?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if dirty is the right word, but I think what it comes down to is when, I think it struck me last night, we were sitting at the reception event and drinking water, and the water was called music water. So I've heard of smart water, but here we are in Austin, and now the differentiation is music water. So I think what's happening is simply there's a lot of sample options out there. I think that's a great thing. And I think it's people trying to find, companies trying to find their edge. What is it they stand for? How do they add value? And I think you try to come up with some, whether it's a buzzword or you're trying to move what's called upstream. But I think obviously sample is definitely required, but how many different options of water are there? There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Is that a bad or a good thing? Water's good as far as I know.
Yeah.
I'll take the con. I think sample is a dirty word, mainly because no one knows what it is.
Yes.
You know, I always say, well, does your mother know what sample is? But maybe more importantly, does the broader market? Do your clients actually know what sample is? Your client's client. I have the luxury of talking to investors a lot, and they have no idea what all this is about. And so one of the struggles that I have, or we have at Lucid in terms of what do we do, trying to frame that in a sentence that the outside world can view and go, yeah, I get it, is really, really hard. Because even if you Google sample, you get music samples more than you get market research sample.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest struggle, is there's not a broad understanding of what this is. And so therefore, we're all trying to tie ourselves to some other framework that allows us to be understood by a broader set of clientele. Then, of course, we confuse ourselves by doing these press releases that say things like first-party data, which maybe someone in the outside world thinks is important, but internally we're like, how does that work? So literally, it's one of the big conundrums that sample is not a word that I can walk into a venture capital firm, say sample, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a hot thing right now.
I don't think we have an exclusive right to the word. It really means a small part of something that represents a whole. And I really enjoyed your talk yesterday, and you were talking about sort of answers to questions. And in my mind, that's what sample is. That's folks that are willing to provide answers to questions based on some kind of an event. And that's what sample is to me, and it's not a dirty word. And collecting enough of it to represent the whole is the goal.
Yeah. But I think you've identified another problem, and that is the outside world not understanding what the word means. So the word itself is not, I don't think is dirty, but there's a second level of trying to explain it to the outside world and saying, well, this is what it truly means.
Well, not just sample, like programmatic sample or automation.
Right. Yeah.
And we could do a poll of our employees and ask them to define sample. That would be fun, or not fun.
Should SampleCon rebrand to DataCon?
I admit, Patrick,
What do you
I
think?
Googled sample last night to get my definition.
You did.
And now we know.
Yeah.
That's funny, because when I started in the sample world, I remember taking phone calls from people saying, I need some samples of carpets.
Yeah.
We don't sell that. And they said, well, your website says you sell sample.
Oh, that's interesting.
No carpets involved. You did mention something interesting, which is how do we educate our buyers on what is sample and sample sizes and so on. How do we maybe get better at talking to those brands and helping them understand what a sample is? I guess, Corey, from the perspective of a buyer.
Yeah, I mean, JD Power is very methodologically focused, so we have a dialogue going on with our clients, all the time about it. And I think that, the clients come on a continuum of sophistication, right? And some, really are not emotionally attached to the academic purity of sample, and some are. And I think that it's our responsibility working with those clients to find that zone and service them appropriately. And the implication is that you have folks both with your seller partners as well as internally within your own organization that can do that. And that's my take on that.
So thinking of rebranding SampleCon, we could become DataCon, or we could become...
Do I get into trouble for that? There's Rachel.
We could become BlockchainCon. So our next hot
nice
topic
segue.
in the room, blockchain. Show of hands, who in this room would happily explain what blockchain is to any other layperson?
There's 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Come on, Vignesh.
Okay, there we go, about 3 people. I have watched numerous Netflix documentaries. I've watched all the YouTube clips. I watched the great YouTube clip where she explains what blockchain is to a 5-year-old, and I just about got it. But obviously it's a huge topic in our industry. So there's a lot of conversations around, is blockchain going to be important to our industry, or is it true sample 2.0, or is it similar to mobile surveys and mobile research? Patrick, I actually would love to start with you if you could explain to the audience what is blockchain.
Oh, my dear friend and colleague Vignesh tells me that blockchain is like a burrito. That's the best explanation I've ever had. If you want to understand, that clarifies everything. If you want to know what blockchain is, ask Vignesh over at SampleChain and ask him for the burrito analogy. That works for me. It's like a burrito. He's going to stand up. Do it. Come on, Vignesh. Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Woo!
There's definitely a backstory to this, just so you guys know. So I worked at Lucid for a long time, Patrick and others here, and I left 6 months ago to start a company, but not a blockchain company. I'll say that right now. But anyway, so I was at a event with investors, and I had to explain the company. And for some reason, we started talking about blockchain, so they're like, okay, why don't you explain blockchain? So this is what I said, right? I happen to like burritos a lot. So my story was, it's basically take a burrito, right? And if you can trace all the ingredients back to the farm or back to the location where they source the guacamole, for example, right? And you can trace all the ingredients back so that you know that you're having a fresh burrito that was recently made, and the guacamole was sourced from a safe location, and the chicken was, is fresh, and so on and so forth. Then you have a blockchain burrito, right? So if you take that same idea and apply it to data, or take that same idea and apply it to any other process, right? So where your material for your clothes come from, so on and so forth, that's basically the representation of a blockchain. You can see it, you know it's clean, you know it's good, the contents are great. So that was the story.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Vignesh, yeah.
So I'm still puzzled, Vignesh, and that was great. And I want to understand how do you take your burrito and apply it to market research data collection, right? I know it's important. So we ask our B2B respondents about technology trends that are important to them, and blockchain is absolutely one of our response choices. But when I'm sitting here as someone who procures sample, I struggle with understanding if it's a verb, a noun, or an adjective, and how it works. And one of the things I'm really excited about today is leaving here with a really clearer understanding of what it means to me in my role with JD Power.
Yeah. Sima, I know you have some thoughts around blockchain for the market research industry.
Yes, I think there's a couple different points. Number one, I think there's a lot of smart people working on some really interesting solutions. So that gives me pause, right? There's something there that is interesting and could help our industry. What specifically that yields? Is it net new revenue? Is it better quality? Like, how does that translate into a financial picture for businesses that are in the space? And then the third point I'd say is I do believe that if respondents are inherently having to answer less questions, and the researchers are getting more data, that has to be positive. So it's still, I've had the pleasure of meeting with most of the major players in the blockchain area, and I still want to see more use cases.
Yeah.
And really seeing how that translates to business and client value.
Excellent. Mendy, what are your thoughts on blockchain for market research?
Is blockchain and crypto the same thing? Who's the experts here? Blockchain, crypto? What's that? Yeah, to be honest,
Be honest with
I
us.
am not sold. I don't know if it's because I don't understand it. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand it, or I've been doing this for a while, or within this industry, going into different conference circuits over the years, and it seems like every year there's this new buzzword that we have to talk about. Again, I want to just say I'm not educated enough to give an opinion, but to me it sounds a little bit like one of those fads. I don't know if it's Pokemon Go, which I don't think Pokemon Go is a fad. Like, I'm excited about augmented reality. I don't know what it does for market research, but I'm more excited about that. I'd love to hear, I don't know why that's not the buzzword this year. I think virtual reality was last year or 2 years ago. The reason I asked about blockchain and crypto, so the way I hear blockchain within the market research industry is for a quality and a security mechanism. And there was recently that crypto company where, I don't know, the CEO supposedly passed, and now there's money sitting that nobody but the CEO can get to, and he's no longer with us. And now somehow they're not sure if he's dead or if it's a scam. And so I just don't understand enough. But to me, I don't know how that's more secure, where one person has the password and then dies, and then everything's gone and everybody's money is out the door. But
Yeah, I think you raise a good point about education, because I think it's about educating us as suppliers, our buyers' buyers, but also the participant as well, because the participant is important in the supply chain, the most important part of the supply chain. And if they don't necessarily understand what blockchain is or how it applies as well, then we really have to do a good job of educating all of us.
But I'm super excited to learn about it today. So.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people speaking about blockchain, so hopefully we all come away with a lot more information. Patrick, any thoughts before we
I just
change
think
topic?
the buzz on blockchain is highly correlated to the price of Bitcoin. And so we're at a down cycle right now. So there's been less funding. So everyone who wanted to say terrible things about blockchain could do it. Now the prices are down. It reminds me of the dot-com bubble burst. There's a lot of activity, a lot of investment. It died. I lost my job. And then everyone who didn't join all the dot-com boom got to say, ha ha, that was terrible. And of course, now software and internet eating the world. So I think we're at that lull before all the awesome actually occurs.
But I also think there's industries that have leveraged blockchain successfully thus far. So to me, that also gives me pause to say, if it's in real estate, if it's in these other verticals, and it's disrupting those verticals, then I don't want to say, no, it's not for us. There's something there, it's too early to tell.
What's the awesomeness? Just a sneak peek to what's the awesomeness
The awesomeness of blockchain.
that's about to come, yeah. Like,
Well, I think
I'd love it, like an application or two.
I don't have a blockchain product to sell, but let's say that we could prevent fraud because we had a chain of journal entries to track back to every single platform and service that you went through to get to the actual survey, so that we couldn't do something like link fraud or demographic fraud in surveys. And that was based upon a standard chain that we were all using. I'm sure someone's going to pitch some version of that, right? Mm-hmm. If that were to be able to occur, then the amount of fraud and data quality would go in the right direction for us. Right. But that would also imply that we're all using the same chain and platform and stuff like that.
And I think the other thing that we do tend to do as an industry is we try to say one solution is going to solve everything. And I don't think blockchain is going to solve everything. I think there's pieces of the formula that could be solved. We still have that early piece of recruitment and getting those people into the system and recruited, and that needs to have more work as well.
Yeah.
Based on the data you pulled, it seems like a simple solution. Shorter LOI seem to answer everything. Blockchain sounds complicated.
I think fraud is a very challenging
That's true, actually.
thing that we should spend a lot of energy trying to solve for. And if blockchain helps us, let's do it.
Yeah.
But to your joke, what you're trying to make is, yes, all we need is really one question surveys and the fraud goes away. I'm kidding, it wouldn't go
Simple
away.
as that.
I'm wondering also if there's an application around privacy. So, we talked a little bit about, GDPR. California is just warming up to launch similar legislation. And is there an opportunity to leverage blockchain to push the management of PII into a different and more secure space?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I think it really sounds like we all need to educate ourselves better on what it is, what the applications might be, and that buzzword again, collaboration. We're all going to have to collaborate with each other, with the kind of new emerging companies to really make sure that we're future-proofing ourselves and doing what's best moving forward. So I would encourage everybody to join a number of the blockchain sessions just to at least understand what it means and what some of those applications might be throughout. Okay, hot topic for the room, consolidation in the MR marketplace. I myself lived through the acquisition when I was at Tluna of Greenfield Chow and kind of witnessed its impact on its employees, the brand name, the perception to clients. And there's a lot of consolidation happening. So I guess, what does it mean for our industry? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And let's start with the buyer, because what are your thoughts on consolidation and its impact on CPIs as well?
So far consolidation has not been a bad thing, but it certainly has raised concern. I think of a large proportion of my sample purchase sits with a single company now, and that company does a great job delivering supply to my projects, but in the same way that any sort of industry would want to have, safety net or diversification around their supply chain or even their revenue, I think it's going to see us, diversifying a little bit more. And again, this is something that, has us kind of, stand up and take notice of the various marketplaces that are out there. And there are other options that, I don't think we'll see a race to the bottom or something equivalent, because there are still, plenty of other options out there. I think that the implications on the sort of, brand side or the client side might be, more concerning than the operational concerns.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Patrick, what are your thoughts on consolidation in MR?
I was trying to remember what was on the hat that Greenfield sent everyone when they bought Chow and Gozing. It was like, bigger is better. Does anyone remember what the hat was? Looking at you, Andy Ellis, right? So I was reflecting on consolidation as not a good or bad, but a fact of the evolution of our space. We were talking last night about how this is an industry that has a lot of change and consolidation over time. What does that actually mean for the nature of our business? More than is one particular acquisition a good or bad thing. I think we all have seen, especially those who've been in the space for a long time, it's happened over and over and over again. I saw an interesting image specifically about Dynata was the number of companies that were actually rolling up. Because we say Research Now and SSI, it's actually like 15 different entities that have rolled up just for that. And the same thing going with Reimagine and Critical Mix. I think what it does speak to is the vitality of entrance into the space.
Yes.
Because if we're constantly having this process of acquiring and building larger companies, that means that there's a lot of opportunity for new entrants, and it's very capable for you to join into the sample or insights business quickly and to grow. And we've seen that at Lucid, the number of companies that 3, 4, 5 years ago were either non-existent or not in this space who are now, let's say, sponsors of this conference. So I think that it's really a part of evolution and a natural process at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mendy, are you feeling good about the consolidation?
Yeah, I don't think it's a yes or no answer, to be honest. I think with consolidation is an evolution. It's not just in market research, it's just the way it goes. And I think each company, each individual needs to look at the challenges and the opportunities that present themselves through, via this consolidation, and you have to take action. I mean, there's no one answer. It's not like yes to the room or no to the room. Look in the mirror, look at your company. Where are you as an individual? Where are you? There's going to be both opportunities and challenges, and we have to try to solve that puzzle.
I actually think it makes us smarter. It forces us to think a little bit more creatively. It focuses, we can't be all the same. The buyers want options. And so it's survival of the fittest. You have to continue to evolve and continue to push the envelope. So I think for all of us, it's an opportunity just to raise our game.
Yeah. So we all need to sing stronger together.
Yeah.
Collaboration. Corey, you mentioned diversification. Do you think that with new kind of market entrants coming into the marketplace, I guess, how are you looking?
Well, I
for those new
hope there's going to be new market entrants. As I
He's going to get sick of seeing all of us. All the
yeah.
time.
No, but as I kicked off my sort of, I was a bear, not a bull. I talked about how, I'm having an increased difficult time with, delivering a representative sample. So all of these different entrants that are on the fringe in different modes and thinking differently about it are going to fill those gaps, right? And that hopefully will result in something that is scientifically sound and supports our products as we move forward. So
And that's
very,
exciting.
very much
Yeah,
so.
I think there's a real opportunity for kind of the traditional sample approach and all these other companies that are on the fringe. There's a marriage there, right? There's an ability to take advantage of all the supply they have and kind of put it into the context of what the client needs are. And that's exciting to bring something net new to the industry.
Right.
Back to that question, sorry, you want to, that you mentioned, Corey, back to the initial question, the future, that's the question, right? What's the future of market research, our industry? I continue to think, and I think it's today, right now is the future. It's happening in front of our eyes. Pay attention every single day, whether it's a new entrant, a new player, a new technology, a new platform, a sample platform. Patrick all of a sudden is calling for everybody should have a platform. That's new.
All the platforms,
right?
All the time.
All the time. That's new. That hasn't happened in the past few years. So I think, every day there's something new, which again is exciting times, and so much opportunity out there.
Corey, I want to ask a question because I feel there's an implication from buyers when they say, I can't get a representative sample. And maybe it's because of my perspective, but I always think, well, and therefore it's the supplier's problem that there's not representative sample.
I think that there's an ownership that the buyers need to assume responsibility with their clients, being open to trying something new, and we're going through some soul searching around some of our our syndicated offerings, and those have been, locked down and tried, tested, and true. Not to use an auto analogy, and we have to look at that. We have to look at the user experience we're delivering, and we have to change as well, and we have to champion that with our clients. And you've all heard somebody say that before, but that's part of my point about staying focused on the call to action, and hopefully it won't take a catastrophe, to be defined later to make us really drive that.
I just wonder if our product is just not very sellable. And by product, I mean all the questions and surveys right now, compared to all the different experiences we have on our mobile devices. And so I worry about we're just missing the point of our real competition is user experience.
Well, is the way we're doing it
That's
boring,
fair.
right?
Yeah.
It's boring to take a survey, and what's your motivation to do it? I do it to get a lollipop hammer or secret word exposures in my word puzzle, right? Yeah, pretty much.
But I do think it's a little bit of everything. I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think we have to work on you. Like, we can't stop there. If we forget the questionnaire and the respondent experience, we're going to lose anyway. Like, we have to work on it, I think, in multiple places.
And another thing is, I know we say we're in it together, right? One community, which we are, but I still don't think, nothing wrong with running your own lane.
Yeah.
Like, we all run the race, but they're different lanes, and you choose it, and you all end up at some kind of destination. I think that's perfectly okay. I think historically, it's like trying to pigeonhole. Everybody has to be the same. I actually don't think that's the formula. Don't be the same. You could be different. That's perfectly okay. Run your own lane, but learn. See who's running next to you. See who's not running this race, and take from it as you wish.
Yeah, and often what helps one helps the other. It's the industry running the kind of race together. I think what I've really heard throughout today is, we're all in this together. There's a lot of opportunities in our marketplace. I feel positive about 2019. And I think there's a lot for us to learn and continue to learn. And I hear the word curious being used in market research a lot. And I love that we all stay curious. Everybody on this panel stays curious. Everybody in the audience wants to learn more and new. And I think that's really important. We have about 6 minutes left. So I do want to open up to the audience. And just as a quick refresh on the topics we discussed, we talked about, are we in a bearable market? We talked about, is sample a dirty word? We talked about blockchain, and we talked about consolidation. So any questions from the audience? There's microphones just on the side. I can see movement.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Betty from Research for Gaming. So I've got a couple of questions. So we're talking about sample, we're talking about not finding representative sample. You've just touched on the user experience, and I'm interested to know if any of you have ideas for how to improve the survey taking experience and accessibility. And then my second question is maybe how sample companies can work more with survey software companies to ensure that that survey experience is the best it could be.
I'm happy to take the first one about the experience. I heard from one of my teachers a couple years ago. He was trying to teach a specific subject, and he said, we live in the microwave generation. We want it now, and we want it hot, okay? And I try to apply that to, there's so many different applications to it. I think when it comes to the experience, I personally think the number one formula is it's got to be quick. You have somebody's attention, a couple questions. I think short LOI is the number one thing to consider for user experience, and I think you'll end up capturing a much, much broader audience. I'm not saying that's the only way, because I know I'm going to get heat for that, but that is, in my opinion, the number one factor.
Well, it's time. You can't ever get time back, right? So it's got to be useful, to your point. If it's a shorter.
Patrick said yesterday in the state about shorter LOI and then CPIs going to 0 or something like that.
What if? It's like a what if philosophical question.
This is a value. Today's market, right? Today's survey experience, I don't know what the future holds necessarily, but it's a value exchange. Think of it that way. There's a value exchange happening. Somebody, a company, whoever it is, wants a piece of information. They want a consumer's time, right? It's what's the value exchange? So for an hour, right, if you're going to give a 25 cent, a 50, whatever the number is that valuable enough for the consumer to interact? And I think what you're seeing with your question, as long as I think as long as there is a value exchange, I don't know how low a CPI goes, and I don't know if that's bad. But when it goes to 0, what is that value exchange that you're providing to that consumer on the other end?
I heard someone describe it really nicely recently, which is not just you're asking them answers to questions or their opinions, but you're asking them advice. You're asking for a person's advice on what you should do with your company, and that's the kind of trade, the trade-off.
There's a second question.
I see a disconnect, though. The gamification is something that, I think about, and Mendy, your comments around the value exchange. So as a buyer, I don't own the value exchange, and then how would I gamify a survey to kind of elicit user experience or participation? So we're working on doing our very best job to mobile optimize and convince our brand clients to deliver shorter surveys, but to actually kind of gamify within our survey experience is difficult if I have 8 different sources of value exchange happening.
But don't think for a second consumers don't want to share their opinion, right? They're hard to find.
No, they do.
They want to talk. They want to be loud. They're on every single platform out there talking, but capture their attention, which is the challenge.
So my feeling is that this is happening rapidly, meaning the user experience is getting better. Maybe not with what I call traditional buyers who come from a pure research perspective, because they have a real disconnect between research, like a survey design and user experience are very different questions people are trying to solve for. But in just speaking from the Lucid marketplace, the rapid increase of short LOIs, everything below 3 minutes over the past 2 years is just incredible. So there's been fine growth rate in the normal sweet spot of surveys, which is 13 to 17 minutes. But everything under 3 minutes, under 2 minutes, those growth rates are incredible. And it seems to me that they have an implied better user experience just because of shortness. I need more data to tell you if it's actually a fun experience for the respondents, but we see the volume just dramatically increasing on the low end on the side. On the same side, 30-minute, 45-minute surveys, the growth rate is terrible, right? Yeah. So the market is making choices to go towards short, which I imply as better user experience. And across the board, the average LOI on Lucid Marketplace has gone down 2 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of 50 million, 100 million surveys, that's a lot of respondent time back to users.
Has there been any consideration that maybe, as well as experimenting with shorter surveys versus longer surveys and seeing the differences in engagement and data quality there, that maybe there could be some different approaches to the way that we engage participants? For example, we extrinsically try to motivate people to take part in projects, paying them a reward for taking part in surveys. Any thoughts about intrinsically engaging people to make sure that no matter what the actual incentive is, they can take part in research for the joy of doing it and therefore be more focused and attentive?
That's an interesting, fundamentally the answer should be yes, right? Because we are drawing people in because they actually want to participate. I don't know necessarily all our clients do that, but I think it's definitely a valid idea and thought that would increase engagement. I don't even know if we need to do research on that, because intuitively,
I think the marketplace, there are a lot of suppliers with very different ways of engaging with respondents. And if a user engagement methodology has higher conversions and therefore it grows quickly and has more revenue, it's going to catch buyer. In the same respect, if buyers see data quality improve because of the supplier's method of engaging with users, then that supplier is also going to be used more. So there's a little bit of a virtuous circle that as there are improvements in user engagement, both the pricing and quality go in the direction that the supplier and buyer want it to at the same time. So I say it's an evolutionary process. There are lots of new ideas that happen from user engagement from suppliers every single day. So there's a lot of experimentation happening.
All right, I'm going to try and keep on schedule. So unfortunately, no time for more questions. But what I heard here throughout the last 45 minutes is a lot of in the bar last night we discussed, in the bar last night we discussed. And that's exactly what we're all here for. So grab everybody this evening. Make sure in the bar you are able to discuss certain topics. I would recommend you go and see Betty's speech on gamification in market research as well, so you can find a little more about that topic. And thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.